how do I switch this? No, that's not the right one. All right. This is going to be a crazy live. And we have a Poseidon in a box. This is what we got. Right here. Wait, is that a refrigerator? Or wait, no, not a refrigerator. TV? Well, it's kind of interesting that the Poseidon box is a picture of a TV, but it has actual, twist around, information about the Poseidon size, model number, color, and it does say on here bicycle regulations. So it is truly a Poseidon that is camouflaged in a TV looking box. So with that being said, we're going to unveil and unbox this guy. If I can get my thing to work, hold position. There we go. All right, hopefully we don't lose everybody here. Well, welcome back to a No Guy Bicycles, Hanging with the Guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy, live series. We're just gonna put this thing together, basically. It's a funny story on this one is the gentleman that purchased this Poseidon was actually in my shop having his bike adjusted. I had the other one, which is featured in another video, that I was working on, and it's all ready to go. And he was got one of those situations where it got kind of expensive to do chain and cassette and all that, and he was looking for a different kind of bike initially to kind of upgrade from what he currently has. And I showed him the Poseidon here, and lo and behold, I showed him where on the website. He ran home and ordered it up and showed up and dropped off at my house here, the shop, and we are now just gonna put it together. So how hard are these new bikes coming out of the box nowadays to put together? Well, we'll find out. Actually, it's not too terrible like they used to be back in the 90s where, oh my goodness, it was a chore for sure. Just a second here. All right, I just need to get my computer up so I can actually read the chat if anybody throws up a chat note. There we go. Okay, sounds good. All right, we're all set up here. First things first is, you got this box that showed up on your doorstep. Hopefully it's all intact. Well, first thing you want to do when anything that's shipped to you, like in a bicycle related, you want to make sure, double check the box, make sure there's no holes in it, obstructions, that kind of thing. We even do that in the shop. And the reason being is we want to make sure it's not damaged. And if it's damaged, you do a claim and you go through those whole 9 yards. If there is damage to the box, keep it until you get through the whole process of building the bike up. If you're hearing a little bit of ticking, that's actually raining outside. 85 degrees and raining. Oh, it's summertime in the Rockies. Yeah, okay, let me position the camera here so it's a little bit further back so you can see what I'm doing. Try to do the horizontal one. I don't know. It just seems like it keeps changing the options for me, or I'm just not smart enough to do live. And my clip here is weakened from the last time. So we will push this live. Get a little more distance so you can actually see what the heck I'm doing. Hopefully that provides enough lighting. Okay, all right, a little bit of earthquake going on, but in any case, sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me just fine. Here we are, Poseidon. So yeah, we inspect it. The bike box is pretty, there's a little hole down there. I'll double check. Little holes are usually not that bad. He did pop it open because he was really confused. He didn't order a TV. But lo and behold, it is your wheel set. And you'll get a lot of pack material out of these. You want to look for a parts box. So that's one thing you want to definitely look for. Sometimes the seat and seat post is set in a different position. That one was zip tied to it, kinda, but it just slid right out. And we're looking at a whole bunch of styrofoam wrapping around the mainframe. If you're planning to, do a lot of transporting or shipping your bike for events or anything like that, it's good to keep all these materials. All this stuff is really good stuff. If not, you can take it to your local shop. They'll probably, these are really huge boxes. I got another one which was massive from a Savello that customer brought in. It's, yeah, you'll be cutting that thing down for several weeks to cycle through your recycling. Looks like we got a, how do I fix my gear shifters on my bike? Well, gear shifter, all depends what kind of gear shifters. That's a question I have on the chat here. All depends what kind of shifters you have. You're gonna have to identify it, try to look for some videos that are specific for those shifters. That's pretty blank. But Park Tools has an excellent video series on doing those adjustments on various different models of shifters. Sometimes there's other videos from guys like me or gals like me doing adjustments on certain shifters out there. So it is a very complicated scenario sometimes, but if you find the right video that matches the shifter itself, the shifter will have a model on it or a make like a SRAM, Shimano, Microshift, whatever, then there should be a model number on there somewhere, and that's where you do that kind of adjustment. Or find those videos to do those adjustments. But there's not a blanket adjustment for a shifter in general. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. So back in the day when you're building bikes, you got your parts box, and what we're gonna do is open this guy up. Be careful not to cut anything too deep, but just to pop it open and figure out what's in your parts box. It's kind of like if you ever built anything at from, I don't know, Wayfair, whatever. You want to kind of double check. You got pedals on this guy. This is actually the rotor wrapped up separately. So the rotor bolts, reflectors. These are required by any standard CC, whatever the regulations for safety. And this one has 2 skewers. Each bike has its own little group of bike parts, so that's always going to be a little bit different. This one actually has frame stickers for the cables not to rub. A little bit of attention thing to, make sure you're not doing it incorrectly, and a little Poseidon. A lot of, and this will probably have its owner's manual on the website kind of thing. So that's where, the new modern age, that's where it goes. Usually is the owner's manual inside there. So a whole bunch of legal verbiage and kind of like, don't be stupid. But in any case, that's your parts box. And here's your seat and seat post. I usually start with the seat and seat post because that's what I clamp onto to get the bike into the stand. For pretty much all bikes. If it's aluminum, I put a little bit of grease, and there'll be a height limit line, so you want to keep an eye on that when you're putting this. And this is basic building bikes 101. Oh, let's put my pedals back so I don't have to hold on to those. All right. So if you can see, yeah, you can see me. Okay. This one has an Allen wrench. Most bikes are metric Allen, so Poseidon is no different. And if you really wanted to, this one does not come with the little Torx wrenches. This one is Newton meter torque wrenches. This one's 5 Newton meters. I'll double check it when I'm done, but I just want to have it secure enough for sure. And when you're on carbon, you definitely want to, with carbon bikes, you definitely want to start with torque wrenches, which you have the Park ones. We have a couple other ones too. But this gets the bike up and you can start working on it. It's really a lot of unpacking initially. So it's really just kind of inspecting and packing. I reship a lot of bikes, so I will keep a lot of this packaging for myself. I'm sorry I'm out of picture frame and just open up the box so I have somewhere to chuck all this into while I'm doing it. And be careful not to scratch the frame while doing this, that kind of thing. That can happen. So you want to be very careful on clipping. This looks like it's using a lot of zip ties and styrofoam. So a lot of companies for packing and shipping, they've done a lot of tests for shipping purposes, making sure the bike will get there. These are gold for protecting the forks for shipping. So, and it's, you know, over the years they have constantly improved, and that's kind of where I learned shipping bikes back in the day. You just basically reverse the process. This particular one that has both wheels off, I usually leave one wheel on when I do mine. So we're going to set that aside for right now. Proceed to the frame and get all this guy free. As so. And this is from the seat post here. Actually, I should probably move my camera a little bit further back and centered so you could actually see what I'm doing. My light cables are all tangled up. There we go. Maybe that's a little more centered there. All right. I know the stand's in the way, but this is just like you hanging out in the garage with me or in the shop. So yeah, it's a lot of unpacking. The rest of it, and same thing for my bikes, when I pack the heck out of them. So you'll spend more time unpacking it than actually reassembling. And if they've gotten really good, you know, the last, decade or so of having the bikes come in more tuned and ready to go, that kind of thing, which is great. That way, they can actually ship it to your house, and then you can actually put it together yourself if you know how to use a couple light tools, Allen wrenches. Companies like this will have videos for reassembly. I've seen the Trek one, which is like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. You know, it's really short. It's not like you're watching me do the whole thing. This is just kind of a review of how Poseidon comes straight out of the box. The other customer brought the bike in pretty much partially assembled already. So I wanted to take the opportunity with this live stream to kind of feature this particular bike right out of the box. And I got zip ties poking me in the ankles. Not good. So I put on gloves. You probably don't need to put on gloves on this. That's my normal go-to kind of thing. So if you've been watching any of my videos, you may have seen me do some frame detailing with ceramic slam or with ceramic coatings. This could probably be the good time to put on ceramic coatings. So the chain's coming off here, so you want to be careful of this area so you're not getting that chain to scratch up the frame. And don't cut any cables and housing, so be mindful of that. But we're almost there. We just got a couple little bits left. And I may change the camera angle so you have a little bit better idea. And also, basically unpacking and assessing everything you have in front of you. Just like a Wayfair or one of those, I don't know how many of those things got delivered to our house during COVID because we were building a playhouse and a canopy and you know, it all just same, but this has a lot less bolts. It's not like BACD parts bag, but basically you're really just unpacking it. And these are just little disc wheel covers to protect the wheel. So our wheels are free. This one does have little caps on the end here. Take those out, and that's where the skewer goes through. So we're going to give this a kind of a review as well as I'm popping this thing together. That's a little, oh, wow, that's kind of stiff. One was able to come out, but use a little trickery. Use the skewer itself to go through the hub. Try to pop this other side out. There we go. Smarter, not harder, right? And don't lose your little spring. So I will go over some details here as when we professionally built bikes back in the 90s and early 2000s, and see if there's some things that are, let's say, lacking or they're perfect. Could be either or. Just don't know, right? Okay. Frame, you got a little hot mess there. We'll do a focus on that and putting the bars on. So back in the day when my dad had a little checklist when I first started building bikes in 1989, and unboxing the bike was the first thing. After that, there's your parts. Step 2. Step 3, identifying everything you got, or put the frame up. I think he had like 12 or 15 different steps, then going on to the wheels. Back in the day, we would take the tires off and true the wheels because they had hops in them. And nowadays, they are coming out of the box pretty darn true, so you usually don't have to worry that. But we're gonna double check that and also the hub. So let's get a little bit more close and personal on this one so you guys can get a little bit better insight and be able to see it a little bit better. Hopefully I don't lose my, let's see, I got a little truing stand. There we go, in the corner. Whoop. Of course my foot tapped it. All right. So first things first, going to check my lock ring tool, make sure it's tight. Yep, it's pretty tight. So that's good. Second, I'm gonna feel the hub. And quite honestly, let me move the camera, give you a little bit better angle here. So we're gonna get a little more down and dirty on this. Like so, okay. Seems like there's something plugged in the actual skewer hole here. Maybe it had a cap on it and broke off. So I'll need the longer skewer for the rear. Maybe that was part of that big black plastic thing. It had a little pokey deal to fit in there, like this little guy, but broke off during transport. So I'm gonna push the skewer through. Yep, there's a piece of plastic wedged in here from the packing material. Okay, so to me, the rear hub is just a tad tight. What that's gonna do over a long period of time, it'll probably wear your bearings out a little bit faster. You want these to be smooth, but no like feeling the bearing friction. These are usually a 15 millimeter cone and a 17 millimeter lock nut. So you see me? Okay. You break it free, use your adjuster side here, back it off like a quarter of a turn. Everything's like quarter returns. Quarter turns for derailleur adjustments, quarter turns for hub adjustments. It's still a little tight. This is one of those practice, trial and error learnings. It's not something you just pick up overnight. It's a finesse touch, and each hub is different. It will have its own challenges. Sometimes it lands pretty smooth. Sometimes it's a little notchy. Okay, I got it to be really smooth, and it's tight. So I'm gonna put the wash or the gasket protector on there. That just kind of falls back in place, and make sure it's not flush all the way around. This one extruded some grease a little bit. There you go. And the tires, they're soft. They will need most, if not all, wheels being shipped. You're gonna have to double check the air pressure. Doesn't mean it's flat. They may have just lost air over the time of when it was manufactured overseas and brought over. And the box says made in China. So this is a China-made bike, which is, you know, really nothing wrong with that. A lot of it's China or Taiwan. It could be a China factory owned by a Taiwan company, or they say they own their own company. I don't know if they bought their own company in China. That kind of, you know, raises the eyebrow when you look on their website. But in any case, you're looking at for quality. And the quality of these is actually not too bad, as I reviewed before. And the tire pressure on these are lower, so I'm just going to knock it up to, I think they're up to 72. Oh, that was the other tire. Which other set of tires? Let's double check. There'll be a PSI max and minimum 50 to 85. So I need at least 50 PSI in here. And 50 will give you better traction, a little softer ride, more comfortable. The 80 PSI will be more efficient, faster. Okay, I went up to 60. So, boom. That's tightened up, and this is a Presta valve, so this gentleman will need to be schooled on Presta valves, which is pretty much on all your higher end bikes. All right, so now the hub's been adjusted, the tire's been inflated. I'm gonna spot check the truing of this as a mechanic. So the mechanic thing you wouldn't do at home, just being a person as building a bike, you really want to be adjusting the hub per se, or truing the wheel. Don't have to worry about the true on these too much, because in their defense, amongst any, as I drop my tool, as always, do a shot. The braking surface is actually on the rotor. So, cobweb on there. So yeah, okay. There we go. Just a couple tweaks. It's actually pretty true. Honestly, it's not bad. You can definitely get away with it. So I would not be overly concerned about that. All right, so now we need to install the rotors. All right, so this, they should have a video on exactly what you need to do to install the rotors. And this is reason pretty much they'll have an arrow side showing the direction. It's on the left side, it'll be going this way. So you want to be having that faced up. And then you have your Loctite torque bolts. And with my gloves, it's causing me some issues. All right, put on a towel so it doesn't jump off. So got the torque bolts, and I got two little silver bolts, which I'll figure out where those go later. Yeah, because it'll come to that point. Let's see, is this Allen or a Torx? Looks like a Torx. Yeah, looks like a, what was it? T2. And when you do these, you don't do it all in a circle, you do a cross pattern. And that Loctite will kick in right away. So it'll feel like it's kind of cross-threading, but don't force it by any means. So zigzag your installation on that. Come on. And this is one of the time-consuming bits here, is you got 6 bolts on each one, and we'll have to do the front as well. So we're just doing the rear. As we're speaking, I'm just getting the thread in there, so it kind of holds its place. And then I'll do the tightening. Get in there. Come on. You want to go in there. So for me, I got a ratchet, and do I have a Torx size 3, I think. This makes it a little easier on that. I think these were, I'll have to double check. I think they were like a 5 Newton meter as well. But you can definitely look that up. Yeah, any Google search. But you're not gonna get it to the point it clicks. You're just gonna get it to hits firm and do a couple turns and then go to the other one. And that way you're not gotta do a pattern, cross pattern. So you're not going in a circle in any direction. That way you're even distributing the load on these, and having a ratchet goes a little bit easier. I usually use a drill because I have a slow setting so it won't pop them to the torque level. Yeah, that one had a little extra. Okay, back over. Yeah, and these are not, you know, let's say the best design for Torx, but that's what the industry has landed on. This is a shallow, and if your tool gets worn out, then it's really important to have your torque fresh tool to do these, because the pattern of it will chew out the bolts. And I've been in a situation where that they have definitely been a problem where I've had to cut these off, which is really a bummer. There you go. So, all right, we got that on there. So the professional touch on this, where I put those skewers, there we are. What I like to do with skewers are dry. So if you're in a wet climate, put a little bit of grease on the pivoting part, and I like to put a little bit of a bearing grease on the actual skewer itself. That'll prevent it from rusting. And the quick release is going to be on the outside where this rotor is. This is going to be on the left side of the bike. So this wheel is ready to go. All right. More of the same. Oh man. Again, front hub is quite tight. And with the front hub, it might be a 13 millimeter. Yeah, it's a 17. So the 13, it might be a 13 millimeter cone. Well, this one's a 15, so we're good there. So same kind of concept. We want to break it free. Back it off the cone, so it's backing off those bearings. And you're tightening it back up. And now I went too far. Now there's like a little knock in there. So this is well, these are loose ball bearings, so it's not a cartridge system. I should back up and say that. And since this is a not cartridge system, loose ball bearings, that's where you have to do those adjustments. On cartridge bearings, you just need to have them compressed down so they're no loose. They're not any play in the hub between the bearing cartridge and the race. All right, there we go. Super smooth. There, I'm at a point where I can put these tools away. So my bench is moderately stress-free. And that little gasket, you kind of have to get it to press over. And you want those flush, because if they're not in there just right, it's in like sideways or something, you can bind up and start squeaking and make a whole bunch of noise for you. You're not going to love that at all when you're riding. So you want to make sure these guys are flush all the way around, that kind of thing. All right, do a quick test on the true on this one, and then we'll throw the rotor on it. So it seems to me so far, what's becoming the longer part is, besides unpacking, Yeah, this one got a little out of true. You know, from shipping, they get bumped around, what have you. And the whole of the box on this one was pretty much out of the area of any contact with the bike frame and parts, so I don't think this caused it, but sometimes they're not perfect out of the machine either. And you can true this regardless if it has air pressure up or not. That's not going to affect the actual rim itself. That's an old school misnomer. It doesn't matter if you air it up before you true it or after you true it, it's going to be the same. Sometimes, well, the spokes used to ping back in the day. Now they're a little more, they're built a little differently, so they're built a little bit better, so you don't have that settling. Not to say they won't all do. Yeah, this one pretty much had barely enough air holding its shape. It did not have rideable pressure. Not safe. It's not even, it was not even at 10 psi, and like we said, it had to be at 50. So I'm gonna shoot this probably up, match it to 60 like I did on the front. So, and yeah, I do have a compressor, but I've always gotten used to using the floor pumps. A little more control, it feels like, and I get a little bit of workout. It's all about those bike mechanic arms, right? So this grommet will back out a little because the tube now is pushed out. And double check the bead, make sure it's seated right, all that. So, okay, so the wheel is true, tire. Now we need to install this rotor. And since there's Loctite on these, you do not want to put grease on the threads. And again, you want to proceed putting in just to hold their position so you can get that rotor to sit as flush as possible out of the gate, so it's not torqued one direction or another. It's pretty tight tolerances already on these when you install them, so it's not usually an issue, but that's just a good common practice on any bolt patterns. Silka, the CEO of Silka has a video on torque bolts and greasing bolts. It's a good little 5-10 minute watch. I learned a couple things after all these years on that video of the idea of what to lube, what not to lube, how to torque, what not to torque. So, the refresher, a lot of it was like, oh yeah, I know that. And some of it was like, oh, I forgot about that. And some was like, I never heard that at all. So, and again, I start off with one, and I just go down to when it makes contact, but not put too much torque on it or pressure on the plate. Just get it to seat in position, right there. Then I go to the opposite direction, opposite side. So I'm just doing that cross pattern deal. If I had my drill set up, I would have done the same, zip, 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 zip. It'd be a lot faster. Probably should have done that, but you would probably be like, oh, you're cheating. And we want to give this as a real-time experience of how long it would really put it together yourself and how long would it really, as a bike mechanic that does the extra something like truing the wheels just in the hubs, that thing. You can probably get away with it, but honestly, this would have needed a little bit of the wheels already need a little bit of love. Start off, and if you pay your bike shop, local bike shop, $50, $100 to install, you know, put it together, make sure it's all safe. That's great. With me, I actually have that and also a fitting that's included. So this gentleman's going to be set up to be fitted to make it's the right size bike. Just want to make sure all those adjustments, it has the best experience possible out of the gate. So start torquing these down. And bam, there we go. This wheel's ready. Just need to put the skewer. Same thing for the front. I use Tri-Flow Superior Lube for pivots like this, pivots on derailleurs, and then a little bit of thicker grease. You can do the park grease, or this is Finish Line. I like the white bearing grease, because if you take it apart of a hub and you just repack the bearings, and it's super black, it's been compromised. Still a little bit white or gray, you're okay. Skewer portion, again, it's going on the rotor side. And voila, our wheels are ready. So what other parts do we have left? Pedals. We'll opt on the reflectors if you want some or not. So it doesn't look like there's any parts left to put on there, which is great. Actually, we're at a good point here. We're doing pretty quick. From here on out, it should go pretty quick. But I have a little hot mess chain here I want to show you. Hopefully my thing won't die or break. Okay. We'll bring this up. So this got all nice and twisted. Usually they zip tie these to a point where, I've had these to a point where they're so bad that you basically have to take the chain back apart and figure out what the heck went wrong. And if I'm lucky, I figured out the trap. So we got it, we're good. Chain's not compromised, it's not been bent or anything. Oh, okay. There's two of the little screws right here. That's how you get my derailleur. But what's interesting is this cable is going to be on the outside. And can I twist that and get it to work correctly? Man, this is like a brain tweezer. Okay, all right. So this housing needs to be out here, not in here. Okay, whew. Man, afternoon brain burn. All right, then you need a skinny Allen. So this is not providing any tools for you to put it together. So this is a very, 3 millimeter? Yeah, 3 millimeter, and do not drop these bolts. If you drop one on a dirty shop floor, you will not find it. It'll be gone forever in that dimension of all the other lost bolts that you've dropped. It's not as bad as the shifter covers of Shimano shifter covers, but could be just as troublesome. Keep an eye on it. Okay. Whew. All right, we're safe. All right, then the binding of this housing is going to make it a little challenging. I need to take my gloves off for this. It's a little warm today. I'm starting to sweat. It's getting a little slippery. Dry my hands off. Sorry about that, but I definitely want to give you a close-up on this guy. And this is where those very good Allen tools, you're gonna have to, it's like a puzzle piece. And if it's gonna hold it in place, get in there. Just get a couple threads in there so it holds it. Then you can proceed on the second one. On that. Let's move it so you can see with the torture I am faced with. There you go. So the second bolt's on the downside here. And the Y wrenches are really a little big, but the long T-handles are not. This is one of those things in a ball Allen. I think they stopped making them for this size. So what I'll do is go to this point, find my 3 longer level. And this is the Wura Allens. They actually work really well. They're beveled, they're German steel. And they grip, why am I going that backwards for? They grip the Allen depth really well. Therefore, on rusted out bolts, I was able to get a lot of these out. So for new, it's even better. Push it in all the way and give it a good tight. These need to be tight. This will loosen up on you, then your world will hurt. While we're here, might as well double check the other side. So on my other bike that I worked on, Poseidons have a through axle dropout converters for these, which is kind of cool because you just switch those out. And then lo and behold, you have a through axle system instead of a drop like this. All right, so derailleur's set up. Get the chain on there. That's sticky. Chains will be sticky with a packaging grease. It's okay lube. It's not great lube, but it keeps it from rusting. That's the whole idea. That's why it'll be sticky. A lot of people will take their chains before they actually start and do the wax treatment. There's a whole waxing thing out there, trend, or you can use a drip lube. Whatever's easier for you. This would be the good time to take it, strip the old grease off of it, packing grease, and put fresh wax on there. If you want to do the strip chips from silica, that's what you do with new chains. So other than that, if it's a dirty chain, you got to use an ultrasonic cleaner or a parts cleaner or something to get all that gunk off and clean it with rubbing alcohol to get the fresh wax if you want to do wax. You can still use the drip lube on these. It just gunks up, and at some point you're going to have to need to do a drivetrain clean, which includes probably ultrasonic cleaner as well. So we got that. So let's get the handlebars on. A little bit of earthquake going on. Woo, yeah. All right. So sometimes it's intuitive and sometimes it's not. You want clear path of cable direction. So if it's all twisted up, that's not right. If your levers are kind of pointed down, the bolts are facing down, that's what you're looking for on this. And this one doesn't have markings, but it's going to be the center. If you need to, you can use the tape measure to measure and score the middle, so you know where the middle is for the mark here. This one has a 4-bolt pattern up front, and as more of the same, we're going to do the same thing here. It's just, this is how you get the bars on. I'm going to put the bars on first, and then the wheels. What's nice though, the brake calipers, or the V-brake calipers, not V-brake, sorry, disc brake calipers are already installed. So we'll see how adjusted they are out of the gate and see how much adjustments there is. I can tell you right now off the bat that the headset is tight. So as well as the hubs, the headset is tight. That would need to be adjusted. The bottom bracket you don't have to worry about too much, really, because it's a cartridge bearing system. So it is already pre-adjusted. They just put those in and you go. But the crank bolts that tighten onto the spindle of the bottom bracket, those need to be double checked as well, because sometimes they're not on there all the way. Okay, see how I got that? I try to keep them all the bolts on there. It's a grasping technique that I've had invented or developed over the year. Okay, so get that in there. You don't have to adjust it right away. You just need to hold it in place so you can get the good Gorilla Grip on there. And I just get the thread in, each one of them, a couple threads. Don't tighten down all the way on one right off the bat. That way it'll keep you from first dropping one of these or two. And there's like the plates, you want them to be even on the top and the bottom. So what I do is, then I go ahead and I tighten one down, not all the way, just to hold its position. Then I match and stagger the opposite direction. So what I'm doing is applying equal pressure in a zigzag motion, like so. Not tightening all the way, but just to a point where it's going to hold its position. And the gap between the bar and the stem disappears, and hopefully the spacing on the top and the bottom are equal, like so. And since it's still fairly loose, then I can do that adjustment. And adjustment of the flow on these, you want to taper down a little bit as the old school mountain bike positioning. That means the position of the brake levers and the shifter are too far up. but the bars is the first thing. You set that, then you adjust these. And then with the cross, a couple turns in each one. And this is where I get that 5 Newton meter torques. Don't have one, it's fine, but it's good to have. So you just start equally locking those in place, like so. Bam. So the bars are fixed position. And if you want to do the brakes, first you relax the derailleur first, shifter, I mean. Release that so you can get to the actual bolt of the brake lever, which is underneath. The idea on these back in the day is like a 45-degree downward direction, like so. And then you match the other one. I may have to readjust these when I have it on the floor, but sometimes I can get pretty close eyeballing it while it's in the stand. And when it's on the floor, that's where the wheels are at equal side. And then put a little bit of like a finger gap between the brake, the casing and the shifter casing, and tighten it down. That way you have a kind of a little bit of nice spacing there so it's not rammed up against each other. And these are thumb shifters, so you gotta kind of see what's going to be comfortable. And you'll readjust those too. Sometimes once you get on the ground and go for a test ride or two, you might be a little different, but at least for initial setup, that's the case. Headset feels a little better, but don't adjust the headset until I get the wheels in there. So, and since we're here, we're going to show you how to put on the front wheel. For quick release, these should have, slide the rotor through the caliper of the brake, and there will be safety catches, lawyer tabs. So you'll have to tighten your skewer down so when you flip it over, it catches halfway out. That's with all skewers. And I like to go parallel with the fork blade so I can get a little bit of a grip and push it down and tighten up. So if it's perfect out of a box, it wouldn't rub. Skewers, that's where through axles are so popular, because the through axle, the position is the same, but with quick release, it can get ajarred a little bit. And this one was ajarred a little bit, but if you adjust it right, it's good to go. If you have problems with it, then you have to watch all the videos on how to readjust these and the cables. There's a whole series of them out there. Basically, you're trying to get the brake pads to be an equal distance away from the rotor itself as the rotor's spinning. If the rotor's bent, it's going to bump against that. There's a couple different tips and tricks on doing that, but actually I'm pretty impressed I didn't have to do any of those with this guy. Let's put it on the rear and see what happens there. All right, my limited space of walking around, hopefully you can see enough on this guy. The shifter is in its relaxed position. If it's not, you want to make sure it is. It's all the way out. That means you know which gear you're going to be putting it in. And make sure the lock, these have a lock on them, so you want to make sure it still flexes or maneuvers down, like so. Same concept. This is, you have two things going on. You got to get the chain on the small cog, and then you got to eyeball the rotor through the caliper. And this is where you'll start using some good choice curse words if you haven't done it a few times. But I think I like this bike. It has mounts for racks and fenders, and it has all the little bits for your adventure riding. So you want it flush up all the way. I've seen have mechanics, they'll flip the bike upside down so they know it's flush on both dropouts. They tighten that down. And you don't want it too loose because it'll come right out. It's a whole safety thing. All right, so the skewer's in there. So first we're going to check the brake. Squeeze the brake a couple times. See if it's rubbing. And sometimes you'll have to use a white piece of paper, put it on the ground so you can actually see through the spacing of the caliper. See if is it skewer related? or is it off? It seems a little tight, so you can do the barrel adjuster to loosen it up on both the front and rear. Now open up the calipers. So there was one note on these that some customers have complained that the brakes don't work that tight out of the box on them. You can get compressionless housing where it's more compact, gives you more direct connect. That's what the customer before this one decided to do. It worked pretty well. So, okay, so it's rubbing on one side. This does have a 2 millimeter adjustment on each side. I think it's 2, maybe it's 3, 2.5. I'll just keep poking it until I find it. That's what, no, I'm not gonna go there. Okay, it's a 3. So I'm gonna unscrew this a quarter turn where it's rubbing. All right, there we go. So hopefully, okay, so this has pad adjustments on both sides. It's a 3 millimeter. You can adjust the pads in and out, but you need to have the caliper already flush to the actual rotor. To do that, you hit the brakes really tight. You loosen up the 2 bolts for the mounts, or you loosen 2 bolts up, hit the brakes really tight. And while you're having that tight compression, have somebody hold the brake for you, then you tighten those bolts up. Hopefully that'll get that caliper to be flush on the rotor. And once it's tight, then you can adjust those pads and also the cable tension. That's why there's like 800 videos on how to just adjust caliper disc brakes. But out of the box, that's not too bad. A couple little adjustments there. The front one's pretty good. All right. Last bit that needs to go on is the pedals. There's a big old R on one and an L on another, right and left. You put grease on these threads if you ever want to get them to come back off. You put those on there. And the easy way to remember is just when you're pedaling backwards is tighten them. And make sure the first thread or 2 catch you clean and smooth before you start ramming into it. And the old fast way of doing it, 2 arms going. Back in the day when you were power building, because you get paid by each build. Tighten those down. While I'm here, I take a 8 millimeter. I'm gonna tighten those crank bolts. This is a squared, I believe, yeah, squared taper. Old school bottom bracket. They work just fine. But if something you want to upgrade, that's something to upgrade. All right, let's see if this shifts right out of the box. Okay, 1, up and down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, wait, it's supposed to be 10, right? Did I not count right? Oh, having problems getting into the top one. What's going on? And I go all the way down. Okay, start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9.5, 8.5. Okay, gonna go down here. What's going on is this limit screw on the inside is most likely preventing it from going over. Which one are you? It's probably a 3. So you got three little screws here. One's for high, one's for low. And the trick is to try to figure out which one's which. And my eyesight's not the greatest, so there you go. So the top one is for the low, and the bottom's for the inside. And this is what they call a B spring that adjusts the cage up and down so it doesn't rub against the big cog. But you want those adjusted in enough so it doesn't throw the chain out. If they're adjusted correctly, you're fine without. Let's see, I wonder if you can see it. Yeah, so tighten that in, it brings that hanger in. And you want to be vertical, line, and able to jump up and jump down without too much hesitation. And then it has this lock that keeps it from banging around. For the life of me, I'm lost thought what that was called again. Not bad. Just a little bit of adjustment for the top end gear. As soon as I thought these were a 10 speed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, yeah, 10. There you go. Should say 10 speed or 10S or something on here somewhere. All right, so new out of the box, cables and housing. Cables technically don't stretch. Housing compresses, which makes it seem like the cables stretch. This one doesn't have a barrel adjuster on the derailleur, but it does have one on the front shifter up here. Okay, this is where it gets tricky, so pay attention. When I unscrew the barrel adjuster, which lengthens the housing, which is gonna do what to the cable? Tighten it. So it's counterintuitive. So when you unscrew it, it tightens. When you tighten, it loosens. Yeah. So the idea to start off with, if you need to adjust that, after a couple of rides, this individual is going to get a bit of loose cable housing compression. You'll put up one gear and it's not going to want to go. Unscrew it a quarter turn, unscrew, unquarter turn, and that, or to half a turn at a time. And that might enable from the small cog in the back up to the next one. And then you check the smoothness in the mid-range. Is sometimes it gets a little out of whack there because that's kind of like the dead spot of the derailleur. If you need a fine quarter turn, eighth of a turn to kind of fine tune it for a vertical plane, that's how that rolls. But pretty much out of the box, this is actually pretty good. So they must test these, ready to go. All right, let's double check that headset. Hopefully I won't lose my phone. There we go. This might be a good angle for us. Okay, I mentioned that it needs to be on the floor. So you can do that. This has a little rubber cover for where the Allen bolt is. This is actually an adjuster cap. These are the lock bolts on the side. This is called the A headset system. It's compressed. Like the hubs, this is the fixed side that's on the bottom. What you need to do first is unscrew the fixed bolts. And once you have those unscrewed, then your handlebars can do that. So you want to make sure you tighten those bad boys back up before you're good to go. And this is where you make sure your tire is straight. And then this is now where you tighten it to compress it. If it's too tight, which I thought it was too tight, then you loosen up a little bit. Knock it a couple times. And this is the trick. You hold your brake and you rock it back and forth. You can't really do this with suspension bikes, but with a rigid fork, you can. And if it's loose, it's going to knock. What we're trying to find is that smoothness without being loose. Okay, that feels a lot better. And then, once you feel like you're in a comfortable position of being adjusted and straight, which is actually pretty straight out of the box, so that's good. And like I said, they've been getting a lot better at putting bikes together at the factory, and they're ready to go out of the box pretty much-ish. Well, it has a fancy little decaling on top here, but the picture's upside down. Well, once you have that tightened, it's fine to loosen this back up. This is just your adjuster cap, and sometimes it won't release. So you might have to back off your top one a little bit. And to get that picture to look correct, or logo, or what have you. The Trek ones were funny because I had a little B dot for Bontrager, and for the first about year, I didn't know what the hell that design was because it was pretty obscured looking. I got schooled. Somebody schooled me. Your B dot's upside down. I'm like, B what? Yeah, these don't have to be super tight. They're just adjuster. And then you adjust your brakes if you need to, if the bars seem off or other than that. This is at a pretty good stock setting as it is now. When the gentleman comes in and I have him fitted, I'll have it on a trainer and he'll sit up on it and we'll do some adjustments. We may need to switch out the stem to a more higher position. So I'm not going to get too much at the pre-build level, just in the general setting, and it is. And I will probably bring this, I mean, this is at the height limit line right now. I'll knock it down so when he comes in, it's not like, oh my goodness, you know, that looks violating. But you want to double check all these bolts, even if they're out of the box, and then making sure that they're all tight. So last thing we want you to do is get hurt if something is not tight. Okay, golden extra bonus points on a build is, I'll show you here. So we did greasing of the skewers as a prevention, right? And we made sure the cassette's tight. Well, we could have taken the cassette off and lubed the spindle. That would have been an extra bonus point there. What I like to do is on these guys, all the Allen wrenches, even when they're new, I had my builders do this back in the early 2000s, and they looked at me all crazy. Just back them off a little bit. Put a drop of, you can use Superior Lube. I like the lithium grease. Just put a little drop in there. Tighten it back down. Doesn't have to be the whole length because there's only so many threads, like 6 or 7 threads for the grommet, just enough to come out. The bolt is definitely way longer than that to accommodate putting on bottle cages or any accessories. The reason why I'm doing this, even though it is aluminum, and on these the grommets are aluminum, sometimes they are steel grommets that are pressed in there, like on carbon bikes. You know, they're supposed to be, some of them are supposed to be stainless steel. This could be stainless steel or not, you may not know that, but it's waiver on a caution. And even with aluminum, even though it doesn't rust, it still oxidizes and gets in the way. So putting a little bit of grease on all these. And if you were watching any of my detail frame videos, that kind of thing, when I had the bike all with the wheels off and everything, that would have been a perfect time to, you know, wipe the frame down with a pre-cleaner, like the surface cleaner from Lithium, which is this stuff here. Let it dry, which will dry pretty quickly. And then you can put a coat with ceramic coating on there. This is ceramic slam from Lithium, or you can use whatever you prefer. And that way you can get that ceramic coating already on the frame and fork before. And also I do personally, I like to do the wheels and the hubs and the spokes. It just adds that water beading shedding. So it just kind of is easier to clean and so forth. That's it. The bike is technically ready to go. To double check it. Make sure I don't have any other messages on there. There you go. So pretty much took me about an hour with jibber jabbing. With novice, probably about an hour or two by watching a video. For me, you know, once I'm cranking and doing like a volume of these back in the day, I can cut my time down about 35 to 40 minutes. But there's still that a test ride, double check all the bolts. This one will also have a fitting, which will occur about another 35, 45 minutes of time with the customer, making sure they're fitted with the bike correctly. See if we need to change any parts out of it. But stock out of the box, actually, I'd give it, except for the hubs being a little tight and the headset being a little tight and a little bit of missile in there, I'm gonna give it a 7. Because when you look at the Canyon bikes and the Treks being sold and the Specialized is being sold direct to consumer, pretty much it looks like it's a little more dialed, what I've seen so far. But if you've had those bikes, please comment below. You know, share with the community of what you've had, if you had a direct to consumer bike and how they went together, if you had to go to the shop that had something to address. Because the hubs being too tight, that can cause damage to the hubs. Same thing with the headset for being binding and not being that good. And this little hot mess of a brain teaser, may or may have not gotten it. So if you're not, you'd have to use a quick link tool to pop it loose. Extra credit for bike shops to do on these bikes is like the ceramic coating, waxing the chain, doing the compressionless housing, which would probably help with the shifting on this. This particular bike has a upgraded caliper system, which is hydraulic, cable actually with hydraulic pistons. I've heard those good things about them. They actually work really well, so that might be worth the $100, $150 upgrade. What's the other upgrade? Well, you have the through axle with wheels. That's a little expensive. I think they had them for like $400, and that gives you another fork. Then you can just take your old stuff and sell it to try to offset the costs. For the drop bar one, they have the Sword shifter versus the Advent X shifter. I haven't played with either or enough to tell you there's a difference. I hope to get one of those drop-ins here, drop bar versions in here soon, so I can poke at it and prod it and see what it does. But in any case, there we have it. Live. Took me an hour. Not bad. Get the box on your porch. Looks like a TV. Weird. And put it together. You got to have your tools. Some Allen wrenches, metric, the Torx. To do it's always good to have a Torx wrench, torque wrench. Pedal wrench is a 15 millimeter. What I had to do to adjust the hubs is the 15 millimeter cone wrench with a 17 millimeter box wrench, a little poker to help. I have like the 5 Newton meter one to do the bolts and the seat posts. But other than that, that's really pretty much the specialty tools that you need. So not really too much, but it doesn't come with it. So you'll have to have those to do so. They have a shop in Cali, which they charge $80 for assembly. That's worth it. I mean, making sure all those things are caught. When they're made overseas, they're not perfect still, but they're pretty close. 7's really not a bad number, but there is that little extra lift, financial lift that you may occur if you don't know how to do these things or are willing to do it yourself. In any case, thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. Until next time, if it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. If you have a bike like this or something that's been directly mailed to you and you put it together yourself, share to the community. That's what we're all here for. Thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Thanks again.